In a world where entertainment is viewed as mindless diversion, only good for momentary distraction, one podcast has taken a stand, thoughtfully engaging the art of our day, dissecting the narrative, and pointing the people back to the greatest storyteller of all. You are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Welcome, movie lovers and theology nerds, to episode 359 of Popcorn Theology, where we examine films for where they align with the greatest story and our greatest storyteller, discussing what to receive, reject, and redeem for common ground, fruitful conversation, and mindful movie consumption. I'm Eric.
And I'm Maddy.
And welcome back to our last episode of our special series on Rings of Power Season 2. For those who have not been following along with us on YouTube, Maddy and I have been covering Season 2 of Rings of Power as it's been releasing for the past, 6 weeks it's been? So go back and watch those if you want the blow by blow of the first 3 episodes through episode 7. And we've just been doing some quick rounds of receive, reject, and redeem. And so for this episode, because we're kind of carrying on a little bit of that theme, this is going to be slightly formatted differently episode. So we're only going to have a very brief spoiler-free section because we're going to be trying to recap the entire season, and we want to be honoring to everyone's time. So, Maddy, what is Rings of Power Season 2 about?
So in Season 2, we get to follow Sauron, now in disguise, as he deceives Celebrimbor into making the Rings of Power for the dwarves and the men. The stranger goes to the east to find his name and his power. Galadriel then comes to terms with the nature of Sauron's power, and it all sets up the downfalls of Numenor and Moria, and probably a couple other things happen. We're not sure, though. We'll explain more later.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of stuff happened and didn't happen in this simultaneously in this season. A lot of people started in one place and they ended in pretty much the exact same place. So let's go ahead and dive into our spoiler-free thoughts on Season 2. So the overall thoughts on Season 2, and then it's kind of like its primary themes. So I'll go ahead and start while Maddy thinks. I kind of spring this on Maddy right before we recorded. So I described this in a previous episode, but I'll describe it again here. This is kind of like that Skinwalker version of Tolkien, where it knows a few beats of Tolkien. It knows kind of like what stuff's going to, like what should happen, but it doesn't know why it works that way or why people liked it when they saw it previously. They're like, hey, let's just do that again. It's a creature pretending to be Tolkien or pretending to be human. I said this again on previous episode, is watching this show, I feel like it's a show that's trying to encourage you to engage it mindlessly, to just sit there and like the big reveal, quote, one of the big reveals towards the end of the episode season is something everyone knew from episode 1 of Season 1. Everyone knew who Grand Elf was. Yeah, bye Grand Elf. Everyone knew that, and yet they try to play it off as if we were caught by surprise. The only way you would be caught by surprise is if you knew nothing about Rings of Power, which the amount of people who are watching Rings of Power that know nothing about Lord of the Rings is an incredibly small minority. So either you know nothing about anything, or you've just been engaging it mindlessly and you're not actually actively thinking through what it is that they're doing. And then on top of that, it's very disjointed. A lot of the themes start a theme. So each episode has can have good and decent themes. We've gone through and we've broken those out.
Mhm.
But almost none of those themes carry from episode to episode to episode. So there was actually it was very hard to find, all right, what's the cohesive theme of this season, that like this through line that crosses over all these different characters and stuff. What's everyone learning? And it was I couldn't really identify one. I've gotten maybe a couple ideas we'll talk about in the spoiler section, but I couldn't really find anything. It felt very disjointed, and it didn't actually have too much to say, because even the good points it had, I don't think it ever actually landed any of them. So those are my spoiler-free thoughts for season 2. So Maddy, what do you got?
Mine are basically along similar lines. I had similar complaints throughout the series. I think in an earlier episode, I described the show kind of like an IKEA display, where it looks pretty sometimes, but there's nothing really there. It's all hollow. It's just for show. It is a set piece in itself. There's nothing really going on behind the scenes, for me at least. And yeah, it's just hard to engage with it because, again, like you said, each episode is almost like its own thing. Nothing really carries through. And we lose track of characters very often. So, like, you see a character in one episode, and then it's like you didn't see them for two whole episodes. And then suddenly they would, like, bring them back. And that's really strange storytelling. Again, like I've seen other shows where you can leave off, maybe for one episode, like leave off one of those plot lines, come back to it later. But not for like 2 whole episodes where you just hear nothing about them. And again, I think another complaint that I had and that I've seen online quite a bit is how time works in this show. There is no sense of time. So it's like, again, like you lose track of a character for 2 episodes, but then it literally starts right back like where you left them, or not. Or sometimes it's like after some stuff has happened, but then you don't know how long it took for that stuff to happen. And that happened several times where I was just really confused about like how much time has passed here. Has it been minutes or has it been months? So that was another complaint of mine. But yeah, I would say that the best thing is that, again, sometimes it was pretty cinematography, sometimes.
Yeah, no, honestly, and that is a good point to make, is like, this is not to detract. We've only been talking really about the storytelling. The cinematography, some of the set pieces, I think the designs of the majority of the orcs are fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that some of the complaints about some of the costumes or armor and stuff like that is legitimate complaints and stuff, but a lot of it, like, there's some really, really good set pieces and some really interesting cinematography. I know David shared in the Patreon group, the Facebook group, one of the scenes, which is actually, I thought was a cool scene. I did not know that a lot of that scene was practical effects. And for this is still spoiler section, but you can, spoiler free section. You can go and look on the Facebook page, the scene that he's talking about. But there's some good directing that took place. It was just a very shallow story at the end of the day that they were trying to tell, and I don't even think they fully executed it on a storytelling perspective.
Yeah. And again, I think we can get more into that later, kind of flesh that out.
Yep, absolutely. So we want to encourage everyone to like this episode, share it far and wide, hit the subscribe buttons and all the other doodads out there. We're a growing YouTube channel. We really want to get the YouTube channel off the ground, because that's where a lot of podcasts are moving now. We obviously love and appreciate all of our audio only listeners. Definitely leave us a review. We need reviews to stay at the top of that algorithm. And we want to try to create more content to get it out to everyone. And with that, also don't forget to follow us and become a patron saint. Support us financially. We are bringing on new hosts. We're doing new technology. We're doing a lot of cool stuff. They're trying to get more interviews out there. If you've seen our In the Lobby episodes, and with that, we're trying to get some sponsors, trying to get some stuff to bring the best content out to everyone, where we can maybe eventually get an editor who can actually do good stuff and make sure all of our audio levels are consistent across the board on every episode instead of just us hobbyists doing stuff. So definitely support us financially. We support from our $1 a month members who have been with us for years, to the new members who are the premium seating members who are doing $5 a month and getting the exclusive content. We love and appreciate all of you. So with that, let's go ahead and I'll roll some ads, and then we'll get back to the episode.
Popcorn Theology has been mindfully viewing cinema from a godly perspective since 2015. But why? Where did it come from? Well, one of the inspirations was our host James Harleman's book, Cinemagogue, published in 2012, exploring the intersections between film and faith. And now, fresh off the press, is an updated edition of the book, the Cinemagogue Director's Cut. This version contains over 40 pages of new content with reviews and recommendations, movie references, illustrations, further shaping the story-formed argument for God's existence, while also delving deeper on hot topics like how we deal with sex and nudity in film. It's the how-to guide for all things popcorn theology. And this time, it's not just available on Kindle and in paperback, but also a hardcover edition for all you true book lovers. So if you like movies, if you're a cinephile, if you spend hours talking film, this book is definitely for you. Or if you're a casual consumer who thinks movie making exists merely for diversion, this book may just change your life. Cinemagogue available now at Amazon.com. For bulk orders or signed copies, check out Cinemagogue.com for details.
Hey, this is James, and if you're listening to Popcorn Theology, it's because you're interested in movies, or theology, or best of all, both. And that probably means you're our kind of people, sharing things in common with our community and maybe sharing common interests our listeners and viewers would be interested in as well. So why not partner with us and advertise your business or ministry right here on Popcorn Theology? We're looking for great, like-minded sponsors and offer reasonable rates with a variety of formats to get your message out. Remember, our fans aren't mindless consumers, so they'll give you thoughtful consideration. That's big part of what we're all about. So for more information on advertising with us, contact info@popcorntheology.com.
And we're back. The spoiler-free section has been lifted, and we're ready to dive in. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it and give the Popcorn Theology ratings. The episodes we've been doing, we've been saying, what's the good, the bad, and the ugly of this episode, or the stale, fresh, and buttered and salted. So I'll start with mine, and again we're kind of talking about the full season here, but feel free if you want to get more nitty gritty on episode 8 itself. Go ahead and go that way. So again, overall, I thought the entire season was stale. Some good moments here. I don't think I actually rated any episode on the popcorn side better than stale. I was trying to remember. I don't think I actually did that. So. Yeah. Again, some cinematography was very well done. Many of the set pieces were quite good. But the biggest problem with the entire series has been its execution at the end of the day. Many of the things have just not landed. It's been boring. It has been uninteresting. I've had the last 2 days, 2 different conversations with people who are casual Lord of the Rings fans and casual fantasy fans in general, and they all had the same opinion of, yeah, it's just not good. Like they're not a diehard fan. They're not, they're not a lore hound like I am, where I roll my eyes every time that they do something stupid. They literally do not care about the lore, and they're just like, nah, this is just boring. So that's kind of basically after episode 3 of season 1. That's essentially where I landed at the end of the day. Was if this was not Lord of the Rings, I would not be watching it, and no one would be watching it, and there'd be no conversation about a season 3, let alone potentially 5 seasons.
Yeah.
And on top of that, for this season, not much actually happened. And many of the characters seem to only be in the show because they are a recognizable name. They don't know what to actually do with these characters. And they go, hey, let's just do this. Hey, let's do that. A good example is the Entwives. Why did the Entwives show up in one episode for 5 to 10 minutes, however long it was?
Not even that. I think 3 minutes.
It didn't really move the plot forward, really at all. The only thing that it did was made the young boy, which I don't remember his name,
Theo.
Theo. It only made Theo not go with the wild men or whatever they call them. That's literally the only thing that ended up happening at the end of that entire thing.
Yeah.
So Maddy, what are your thoughts on the popcorn side of season 2?
Again, basically similar. I don't think I ever rated an episode over stale. I think I said episode 5 was stale but salty.
Yes.
So eatable. Episode 5 was probably the best episode of the season. It was the most interesting to watch.
I think I described it as not bad, almost good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of this whole show, honestly. Well, actually, no. I'd say it's mostly bad with a little good sprinkled in here and there. I think that's what I'd say. This particular episode, episode 8, I think might be one of the worst episodes for me. It's between that and I think it was literally the episode after the best episode, episode 6. That one was really bad because that one, I remember it was just people walking around. Nothing literally happened in the episode, just people walking around. This one, I guess lots of stuff happened, but it was all kind of meaningless. Like Eric said, it's this whole show. I don't know what these characters, again, why are they here? What is their objective? What is their want versus need? That's like the main motivation for any character if you've ever taken a class on storytelling at all. The main thing you want to do when you're writing a character is you have this struggle of want versus need. And it doesn't always, and sometimes it ends up being the same thing. Sometimes it ends up being different and they learn something. So that's just basic rules of storytelling. And I don't think any of these characters had that, like wants and versus needs. I think they all had wants, which is interesting. But it's like they don't have needs, and I'll go into that more later. But just thinking from a storytelling standpoint, I was just going through and thinking about all the characters and like Galadriel, like what did she learn? Where did she start versus where did she end up? And for her, I have the strength to resist because of vague light references. Hope. That's it.
Yeah.
And then for Arondir, I don't know. He didn't get to kill Adar, which was his whole thing this season. Adar got killed by orcs, his own orcs. And so I'm not really sure why he was there. Nothing happened to him. He's just he's there. He's there. That's it. With Nori, again, not really sure. She's like, oh, I'm going to do something great on my own, and I can't fix everything. I guess that's what she's learning. Isildur, big question mark. Elendil, big question mark. Gandalf, basically the same Grand Elf, sorry. Grand Elf. It's just he's in the same place, but with a new name. So again, it's really confusing trying to... I think that's why the show's so boring, is because you're confused about why you like the characters, because there's no reason to like them or follow them. And I just want to point out that I'm like not, again, like I know sometimes I can be a bit of a harsh critic, but I did look at, I literally was so confused. I went on different threads and read different comments on YouTube videos to see if anybody else kind of felt the same. And I found out that there's a lot of people, again, like you said, like even just casual Tolkien fans who just think the show was confusing and they didn't get it, and it's just kind of a bad show. Because most of the comments that I was reading, same struggles that I had, were why do we care about any of these characters? Where's the plot structure? Sometimes it has nice visuals. But yeah, I feel like the show essentially is kind of a LARP, a live action role play. And it's just characters walking around interacting with the set and other actors. But there's no like overall like plot structure or theme to this. It's more like, oh, this is cool, this looks cool, this looks cool. Just put them together, we'll kind of see what sticks, basically.
Yeah, and I think that is a great example of that is the Balrog. Is why is the Balrog in this series? Like, just period. Like, why is the Balrog in this series? And then why did the Balrog show up in that particular episode? What's going to happen with the Balrog afterwards? Like, it's like,
yeah, I think they sealed him in, but for how long? I don't know.
And that's the thing, is like, okay, cool, it's sealed in now, and now it's like they're not even concerned about this demon from the ancient world.
Yeah,
they're like, oh yeah, no, it's there. We've got dwarf political things to worry about now, and it's kind of like, this beast just killed your dad.
Yeah,
I just collapsed this tunnel, just did all this type of stuff, and it's just there. But it's these, like you said, it's characters that are just interacting with a set piece, or hey, we know that this is Moria, it's open, right? So let's show the grandeur of Moria, but we know that there's a dark secret underneath, so let's go ahead and show that too.
Yeah,
it's like that's I don't think when they said they delve too deep and too greedily, I don't think that's what they were intending.
Yeah, I also don't think it was just one dwarf.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I think it was a culture that was doing it. But yeah, so so let's go ahead and let's move over to the theology side, or the themes side of it. And so as we know, we've talked about this before, a bad show, or the quality of a film, doesn't always reflect how deep its themes are. And so there can be some shallow films that have incredibly deep themes, and vice versa. Some incredible films that have pretty much no themes to really even talk about. And so where are we kind of landing with this one? Is this diluted, carbonated, or is the cup running over?
You want me to go first?
Go for it, Maddy. I'll reel you in. I'll reel you in with this.
Okay.
Remember, these are just these are the thoughts. This isn't the reject and receive, redeem section yet. This is just the thoughts.
Yeah, Eric saw my notes and he was like, "Whoa." So I'm gonna say diluted. But again, I will say in each episode, we were able to at least pick out 2 or 3 good themes that they pulled out. Again, the problem though, as Eric mentioned earlier, is that they never deliver on any of themes. They just drop them in. And it's pretty, we're just gonna drop in this really cool deep theme here and do basically nothing with it. And so at this point, for me, especially going into episode 8, I think the showrunners have made it pretty clear that they reject the ideals of Tolkien, even while trying to espouse them through their own lens. And this is the primary problem, I think. I don't think that they understand Tolkien, and they don't really understand Christian ideals. So while they quote his lines and use some of his word for word lines literally, we kind of see that even a blind squirrel, can find a nut every once in a while, as the saying goes. It happens all the time in other films and TV, and that's kind of why we're here, is that we want to pull out themes that even other secular filmmakers don't realize that they're even doing. And some filmmakers will even embrace Christian ideas while not embracing Christianity itself. But I feel like with this show, particularly, it definitely embraces its own ideas while forcing them through a story that doesn't fit them. And I was kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, it's like trying to force a puzzle piece that doesn't fit. Like, you're doing this puzzle, and there's a lot of things that do fit. You know, you're putting together a lot of pieces that do fit, but then you have certain ones that you're just trying to jam in there, and you can kind of make it fit. You can kind of just shove it in there. But when you finish the picture, you can see that it isn't in harmony with the whole puzzle. And if you get one piece wrong, then it's likely to throw off other parts as well, because you're trying to complete it based off of an error. And so that's how I feel like what they were doing with this show, basically, is that when you look at Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings doesn't follow the books completely right either. There are hardcore Tolkien fans who would tell you all the problems that there are with the Lord of the Rings films, and I get that too. I also know about them. But the thing is that Peter Jackson understood the source material. As the Gen Zs say, he understood the assignment. He got it. I think the reason that this show is terrible is that J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay don't at all. They think they do, but they don't. So that's my thoughts, basically. Some of my thoughts.
Yes. No, and I think there's a good reminder of kind of like what it is that like popcorn theology does. And I think sometimes like in our desire to like find the redeeming things, to find this, we can inadvertently, like, we try to turn a bad show or a bad, movie into a good one. And it's one of those things where it's like, just because you can find a Christ figure in, just because you can find a Christ figure in this, which, I mean, you can find people who do Christ-like things in this show, doesn't mean that it's therefore a good show. And that's kind of like what been one of the memes of years of people who have tried to do things that like popcorn theology does. It's the joke was called Jesus juking. Whereas the Babylon Bee does great things about that. Whereas like, here's 15 ways that Taylor Swift is like Jesus, and it was obviously everything would be satirical. It was because she one time gave someone water. That's it's like it's things like that where everything becomes a Jesus juke, and we're trying to find, even when we don't particularly like a show. Which if you like the show, awesome, more power to you. We're trying to find the themes of where they do align, and where they don't align. And one of the things that why Tolkien fans in particular get upset is a lot of us, because we're nerds, we generally don't subscribe to the death of the author theory. And so we believe that the source material is, lack of better words, sacred. and so when you then go, no, we're going to take this piece and this piece and this piece, we generally get upset. And then when you tell us that, no, we're the ones that are wrong and not honoring the source material, that's when we really turn against you. So I agree with all your points. This episode is definitely this season, I should say, was definitely diluted for me. Episode 6, actually, which was actually the episode after the Almost Good episode, it actually had the most interesting things to say, in my opinion, and is because it was mostly just focused on Elendil. And Elendil he's the classical masculine character, basically. Like there was another podcaster that basically said he's like he's the only one with any testosterone above a eunuch's. And it's really kind of true. Is like he is the only man in this in this season, in an entire series. Even Gil-galad, he should be. I mean, he literally in the source material is like almost you would think of as like an angel or an archangel or something like that. He's a warrior. For those, I'm going to spoil this for everyone. Isildur does. Yeah, I was reminded of this the other day, and I was like, "Oh, that's right." Isildur does not kill Sauron. So if you all your Lord of the Rings knowledge is from the movie, that's wrong. Who kills Sauron is Elendil and Gil-galad. both of them die in the struggle, and Isildur just comes and cuts the ring off Sauron's dead body. That's how it happened. And so just think about that, like what they've done. This is a guy who's going to go toe to toe with Sauron and win at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And they have not done him justice. Elendil, I think they have somewhat.
I would agree with
a,
you on that.
He doesn't have a ton of agency. That was one of the other things this other podcaster was pointing out, is like he doesn't actually have a ton of agency. He's constantly being told, go there and go this and do that and do that. But he doesn't have a lot of agency himself, but he does have character. He does have character. Yeah. And the way I've been thinking of for those that have watched the show is he's Ned Stark from Game of Thrones. He's a man of character surrounded by politicers. You have people who are constantly trying to find different angles. Even his own daughter is undermining him because she doesn't agree with him politically, which his political stance is the queen's the rightful queen is the rightful ruler of Numenor, which is not a incredibly political stance.
But it is in this show.
Yes, it is in this show. And so a couple other little thoughts and themes in here like that, and they just couldn't really fit them into like a receive, reject, or even a full theme. Is one of the lines that the Dark Wizard says is, "Pity will not defeat Sauron." Well, anyone that knows the source material, that's actually exactly what it does. It was Bilbo's pity to Gollum, which is what, he stayed his hand, and then, that's, Gollum living is what helped Frodo get all the way to, and Frodo wasn't able to complete his journey, and it was Gollum's hubris at the end of the day that made him, after he bit the ring off, he leaped too far and fell. Frodo did not push him off like the movies. It was pity that did it. It's like saying love, it'd be like saying love is not going to defeat sin. If you want to think about it that way. And it's like, no, that's exactly what did. It was God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Another little thought is, I thought about this, and I never really thought about it before, is why was the Balrog under the mountain? Like, the Balrogs are essentially Balrogs are basically fallen angels. They're the same thing. They're literally the same type of creature that Sauron is, that Gandalf is, that Saruman is. The moon, I believe, or one of the stars is one of these. It's like, so why was it under a mountain? And then I remembered what happened at the end of the Third Age is when the Valar came. They came and destroyed the land, and they destroyed Morgoth's armies and put them in, and everyone was thrown to flight, Sauron included. And there was this great scene in Revelation 6, 15 through 17. It says, then the king, and this is again, this is God entering the scene. This is from the Bible, Revelation 6. Then the kings of the earth and the great ones and the generals and the rich and the powerful and everyone, slave and free, hid themselves in the caves and among the rocks of the mountains, calling to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who is seated on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand? And to me is like, why is the Balrog hiding? Because God showed up, and that's it's the only way you can even try to hide is let this mountain fall on me, and let me do that. And then the last two parts, and we can talk about this a little bit, is one, I feel poor Papa Orc. I mean, he's never coming home. Baby Orc is never going to see his dad, which
so sad.
Honestly is sad. As a dad now, I actually do relate a little bit more. But it still is like they tried to humanize the orcs to the point, and they got it. But also that turn doesn't make any sense either. It's like, why do the orcs betray Adar?
Yeah,
like. He's literally giving him the only orc we've seen any pushback to Adar has been Papa Orc, and he's like, and it's just because, oh, you're getting us killed. It's like, but he's fighting Sauron, and then as soon as Papa Orc meets Sauron, he turns. Yeah. And again, I think they were trying to go with the whole like orcs are an oppressed minority type of thing, but why are they so susceptible to Sauron? I don't know.
But then they're not susceptible to Sauron because literally the first time they literally backstab him. So why couldn't he persuade them then? Like
exactly.
Versus now when nothing changed. Like Adar was still alive. Adar was also alive then.
Well, that scene was very interesting because who's the first person who stabs Adar? Papa Orc, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's the first one that stabs him, and then all the other orcs come, they stab him. And I know it's supposed to be
that scene from the first. Yeah,
it's supposed to be a recreation of the scene, and also the Caesar, everything. You tu brute, or et tu brute. But then like the last of the killing blow is like it's Papa Orc again, and he's like looks at Sauron and is like, oh, I don't want to do it. It's like you already stabbed.
You already did it. Yeah, did it, son.
I don't get it. But I do have a thought on the whole idea of why Sauron versus Adar. Why Sauron versus Adar? And I think at the end of the day, it's this indication of it's freedom versus the strong leader or the seemingly strong leader. Freedom comes with it responsibilities, and you need to have virtue. The strong leader will tell you what to do. The strong leader doesn't care about your virtue. The strong leader doesn't care about your kids. The strong leader, Sauron, kills Papa Orc the second that he questions him. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and it's easy, quote unquote, to follow a strong leader. Whereas Christ is I said this in the previous episode, he set us free. He set us free from the power of sin and the devil. And we're now on a path of sanctification. We're already justified. We're already part of his kingdom. And now we're in this process of sanctification where the evil in us is being washed away. Mm-hmm. And then the last part I'll talk about, and then we can jump into your thoughts where you're going to rip this entire thing apart. And then I'll wrap it up. I'll wrap it up at the end. Then I'll wrap it up at the end with some receives I was able to think. Is I actually did think this was kind of funny. I won't say interesting. Funny is essentially they turned Sauron into an incel, and you can tell that they turned him into an incel because, and you get this with a lot of internet atheists and redditors and stuff like that, is he speaks incredibly highly of women while simultaneously abusing them. And that's exactly what Sauron was doing with Galadriel in the final fight between the two of them. He was speaking incredibly highly of her, and it's like, I would have made you. I feel like I have seen the meme of this text before. I would have made you a queen and this and that, and you everyone would have loved you and bowed down. While he's stabbing her, literally stabbing her, and said, "It's like, And so it's just like they did it. They did it. They turned Sauron into an incel, which, I mean, incels are all bad anyway, so I don't care. So I was like, I just thought, I was like, they actually did it, though. I was like, they actually did it, and they did it, quote unquote, right, too, because that's exactly how incels view the women who reject them. Yeah. And so, Maddy,
that love triangle.
Yes. Yeah. I do want to know what I only want a season 3 so that we can Celeborn can come back so we can find out
what coming out of this are glorious.
Yes, yeah, I know we've shared a couple of them, but it's like, where's Elrond? For I much desire to speak with him.
Yeah, I just like the ones where he's holding a shotgun.
Yeah, the Peter Griffin. I just want to talk to him.
I just want to talk to him. It's like, sure.
All right, so gosh. Maddy, let's go ahead and let's do some rejects, and then we'll wrap up.
All right. So again, this is kind of a big long deal, kind of a continuation from earlier, basically, because I was talking about how the showrunners themselves don't believe in these themes that they're kind of dropping in. to these episodes. And at first I was only guessing that, I'm just watching the episodes. And on this last episode, as it ended, I just left it on as I started to write my notes out. I was on my computer. And then it started auto playing the behind the scenes episode. And apparently I didn't know this. They've been doing like these behind the scenes interviews and stuff, footage, kind of like what they did with the Lord of the Rings movies, where they do interviews and they have behind the scenes footage and stuff of kind of on that particular episode. And I didn't realize this, and I had never watched any of them. But it started auto playing it, so I started watching it. And I was just shocked by basically the writers were saying what I had been thinking all along. And they just said it out loud. So if you haven't watched those, I really encourage you to watch at least the last one. Because again, I don't want people to think that I'm just being harsh on this just because I hate it so much. I do hate it, but but it's not just me. And these aren't my lines. So I'm just going to read what the showrunners were saying, because at one point they were talking to the showrunners, and these are direct quotes that I pulled from that episode. So talking about when Adar dies, and to set this up, so Adar is suddenly this morally gray character, basically, because again the orcs are kind of victims now. And Galadriel is basically all in this episode for like giving the orcs their homeland, I guess. And like it's okay if the orcs killed, the Southlanders to get it, apparently. But like we're gonna give it to them because Adar is good now or something. And so the writers said, yeah, that scene, it's disturbing but also heartbreaking somehow. And again, they're just conflating evil with good, which is very anti-Tolkien. This moral ambiguity. Biguity. I can't speak. And then next off, talking about Gandalf, the Gandalf Bombadil plotline here. Only by going to save his friends, he now has earned the right to his staff and to learn his name. So, and then I underlined that earned. He earned the right to his staff and to even earned the right to learn his name. Which is basically, as we know, works theology, which that might be a Tolkien thing because he was a Catholic. So, yep. That beside, but yeah, again, the show's so confusing. So the writers said that. I mean, they wrote this thing, and they said that he had to earn the right to his staff. But yet in the episode, Tom Bombadil says, a wizard does not find his staff, it finds him, like his name. Which is a complete ripoff of Harry Potter.
Yes.
The wand chooses the wizard, Harry. And then yet again, Adar, talking to Galadriel, says, Adar is the name I earned. I was given, the name he was given before was a meaningless name, a name I was given. So it's like, it can't decide which theme it wants to receive or reject itself, honestly. The next one that I thought was really interesting too was the line from, was it Poppy, I think?
Yeah.
We've just got to accept it. What's broke is broke. All anyone can do is try to build something new. And it just made me think of this idea of, again, tearing down the old, ushering in something new. Like the system is broken, just start over. And again, I might be reading a little bit into that one.
Yeah, I was about to say, I did not get that from that one. Actually, that was one that I was like, it's just interesting that they're actually not trying to, it was like, no, this person is dead.
Yeah.
Type of thing. Yeah.
It's, again, like, I might be reading a little bit into that one, but I just thought it was, an interesting thing that I was thinking about when I heard that for some reason. I don't know why that popped into my mind, but it did. But another one that going back to, like, what the showrunners were saying, This one was actually the one that stood out to me too. It's kind of a two-parter quote. The first one's that they're talking about the character of Nori. And it's like the interviewer said this. She was talking to J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, and she was saying, yeah, I really saw Nori as the anchor of good in this show. She is the guiding light. And they agreed with her. They were like, yeah. And they said, ironically, you could make an argument that it hasn't been to help him find his destiny, him being Gandalf, not Gandalf, but for Nori to find hers. And that right there, that struck me. You could make an argument that it hasn't been to help him find his destiny, but for Nori to find hers. And the next quote from them was, it was as important for her self-discovery as it was for his. And immediately I thought of the critical drinker and the modern audiences. Because that right there is, I mean, that idea and the fact that they wrote that into her character and Gandalf's, basically, is that they are trying to build this show for modern audiences because it's a selfish journey of self-discovery for their characters is basically what they're saying here and what the show has been showing us. It's all about finding your path and your important part. It's about autonomy. It's a word that everyone likes to use nowadays. There's really no greater good to look to except to yourself and what I need to do for me. And again, that's not me saying this. That was the writers themselves telling you their ideas for those characters. And that's just a very modern concept. And it's so antithetical to Tolkien because Tolkien's stories explore death and immortality and sacrifice and war, friendship and destiny. They're
on top of that, it explores duty, and that's one of the main things that is missing in our modern audience and our modern age. I always recommend to people read Carl Truman's Strange New World, and then the expanded version, Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, is where we're all expressive individualists.
Yes.
And one of the main things that has to go in an expressive individualist world is duty and duty to other people. And so while these two characters may be on a journey of self-discovery, or even they sacrifice, Gandalf believes he's sacrificing his destiny so that he can go find his friend, go help his friends. That may be some sort of sacrifice, you say, but at the end of the day is like his duty is from the Valar and to go and defeat Sauron. And it doesn't necessarily mean letting Nori die.
Yeah.
But it also means he has a task to accomplish.
Yeah.
And it is a very selfish thing to not follow through on your duty. And then they then try to spin it off as, well, it was a test all along. And it's like, whatever. Whatever. He abandoned his post. Yeah. Which is the thing he accuses Denethor of doing, of not being prepared and not doing his duty. And again, that's centuries later.
But it's and you're right. I mean, again, duty is such an important thing, and it's like they're just, like you said earlier, it's like they're humanizing everything so much, and they're just reducing it down to this human level instead of upward to a higher level. So let's reduce it down to finding yourself instead of finding your place in the grander scheme, which basically is duty. That is so important as Christians to our identity. Our identity in Christ is more important than our identity. Our place in the story is more important than seeking a place per se. Again, I think of that verse, some people think that being a hand or a foot is undesirable. Why can't I be the head? Why can't I be the eye? Or why can't I be the ear? But we all serve a greater purpose. even if it looks ugly and undesirable. And again, it just made me think of the dynamic. We keep saying, a lot of people online, and including me and you, we have sometimes referred to them as not hobbits and not Frodo and not Sam
Yeah.
and not Gandalf. And there's a reason for that, is because, again, Nori is like the opposite of Frodo. And sometimes people like to hate on Frodo. They like Sam. They're like, Sam's the real hero. But the thing about Frodo, again, is this whole duty sacrifice thing, is that the thing about Frodo is that it's not about Frodo.
Yeah.
He sacrificed his life to carry the weight of the ring. He is a type of Christ figure in that sense. He gives it all up so that others will endure. He is the anchor of good in the story. No matter what it costs, he pays it. He loses all agency, basically, receives almost no honor among his own people, and eventually even leaves Middle-earth and basically lets his friends finish their story. Again, sound familiar? So again, Nori is the opposite of this. She wants to find her own path, find herself, and she might find a home for the Harfoots along the way. That's what I think they're going for. But again, she hasn't sacrificed much. She left her family willingly, but they're still there. Bearing any particular burden except the burden of self-discovery, maybe being the first Harfoot to set off on her own. A real hero doesn't need to discover themselves. They need to discover what they need to do for the most good. So no matter what happens to them along the way, I feel like Harry Potter has more in common with Frodo than Nori does. Yeah. So those were some of my rejects from there. So I'll let you finish with some good stuff, I feel like.
No, absolutely. So you decided not to go with it, but essentially you're like, yeah, there's other films that do these archetypes better. And you mentioned The Green Knight, which is, I love that movie. I love that film so much. If we ever have a downtime in our schedule and I can convince the other hosts to do it, I will absolutely cover The Green Knight, because I think it talks very, very deeply about the what it means to be a warrior, what it means to be a man, what it means to be an honorable person, and what it means to receive and accept grace at the end of the day, which are all themes that are lacking in this show. So an overall reject, I would say, for me, for this entire season, is probably the Gandalf plot line, which seems to be, again, about finding yourself and choosing friendship over duty. And it's the thing where duty is a bad word. People don't like like using the word duty or responsibility. A lot of people in the men's help world, I will say, not the like the Andrew Tates of the world, but actually like good people like Aaron Wren and stuff like that have good things to say. A lot of them shy away from duty. You're talking about duty. It's like, no, you need to talk more about the benefits that come with duty and everything. And at the end of the day, it's like, yes, we can talk a lot more about those, but the thing actually has to be done.
Yeah.
Right? The thing actually has to be done. And Christ, his duty was to go to the cross, and that was going to be the best things for his friends. He's like, I no longer, I no longer call you disciples, but friends. Is really what he's saying. And then he goes to the cross. And this says, no, your duty to the Valar, your duty to this, your duty to get your powers back so you can go and fight Sauron. No, that you put that to the side and you choose friendship instead.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not the path that Christ took. That's actually the path that Adam took, where Adam had a duty to God, to tend the garden, to worship God, to protect his wife. And when his wife was deceived, he followed her willingly, because that's what it says. Eve was deceived, Adam was not. And so it's like, we need to recapture this word duty, and duty's not a dirty word. It's actually a blessing. To have a duty put upon you is actually a blessing, because you now know what you need to do with your life, because now you have a North Star. And Christians, our North Star is obviously Christ, and we can follow him, but he has duties that come with it. I would say is like when Christ said, "My burden is light," he removed from us the burden of self-creation, which is what our modern audience is trying to do, where everyone's trying to self-create. He removed that burden, but there's still I will say a burden. It's a light burden, but there's a burden that comes with it, and it is take up your cross and follow me.
Yep.
And that is a duty. Take up your cross and follow me is a duty. And so we need to recapture that as a culture. And so then wrapping up real quick is for me is Caleb Brimbore's last speech. This is a receive, actually. And he's talking with Sauron, and he's talking about how there's a wind that you can never follow. He's talking about, like, I'm going to die, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to go home. I'm going to see the White Shores. I'm going to go to Valinor, and a wind will carry me there that you can never follow. And it reminded me of the verse that says, "Do not fear those who can kill the body." And it's Christ. It's Christ talking about, it's like, don't fear these guys. Don't fear the earthly powers. Don't fear this. Don't fear losing the next election. Don't fear this. Like, what are they going to do? Kill you? Like, that's a pathetic power. That's a pathetic power. And it reminds me of the Darth Vader quote of the ability to destroy a planet is nothing compared to the power of the Force. And it's the same thing with the church. Is the church holds the keys of the kingdom. We open up heaven to sin ravaged people. Yeah. And we open up heaven to them and go, come, taste, see, be part of this community. Christ has redeemed you. Come. That's way more powerful than holding the sword of saying, "Hey, you're a sinner. It's time to get executed." Yeah. So I will say that we'll go ahead and end on that spot, is because I think that is a great, from Caleb Brimbore's dying words, is Satan, there's a wind that's carrying me home that you can never, ever follow. And so until next time, keep engaging movies and media from a godly perspective. And remember, you are not a mindless consumer.
Thanks for watching this episode of Popcorn Theology. For more content, subscribe on YouTube. Follow and interact on social media to help broaden the conversation. Check out our archive of past episodes at popcorntheology.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. And consider becoming a patron saint by supporting us on Patreon, which lets you interact, influence, and enjoy exclusive bonus content.